Hi everyone, I'm Daniel Van Hoosen. I'm a PhD physicist, but here talking about search engines and patents and scientific literature with Euler Science. So we're developing a interactive semantic search engine for patents. So this is Alice. Alice is a researcher at a drug company here in Albany, and she's discovered a new drug. Luckily, Alice has in-house patent IP individuals who can help her through that process, which is usually 3 steps with the patent searching, and then the patent drafting, and the patent review, which is obviously the part that takes the longest. So this can be time-consuming and costly. And what do folks do if they don't have access to this internal IP? Or what do they do if they don't have access to resources, for example, financial resources to hire externally? So patent search technology, as is primarily based on this ranked list approach. So for example, Google patents, although IP professionals typically don't use Google patents, they use PatSnap or other tools. They typically allow for searching and operators and esoteric search terms, which will lead to a ranked list of results. But what's going on under the hood? How are these results determined? And is there any connection between the results as they're shown on the search engine itself? And so what we're trying to do is expose some of that information to the user to enable them to better understand the patent space. So luckily, the patents themselves are structurally hierarchical in nature just by their existence. And as you sort of traverse this hierarchy, you get more and more specifics on the patent itself. So at the top category, you have something like human necessities, which encompasses a ton of different things. So just for reference, the graph here is a sunburst chart, and I'll sort of traverse it as we go through the slides, going and getting more specifics on the patents themselves. So you may traverse to the next level, and now you're looking at medical devices. And as you keep traversing this hierarchy of patents, it gets more and more specific. Here we're looking at prosthesis devices and other things like stents, and then keep going to F01, and then these are sort of looking at medical devices to help with broken bones and things of that nature. So finally you reach the lowest level of that under which the patents finally exist. But by the time you've reached this level, you've actually gained a lot of information about the patent itself. So here, this is especially adapted for correcting deformities and for supporting bones and things like that. So, so what we're doing here is we're exposing this hierarchy, and then at the bottom level where the patents exist, we're creating a node network where you're exposing the similarity between the patents themselves. So each of the patents is displayed as a node, and then connections between those patents represent the semantic similarity between those individual documents. So as you make a search, you'll traverse through the CPC hierarchy automatically and be shown this sort of node network where you can see the individual patents. But now you can sort of define the patent space in which you need to search just by sort of determining how similar you want the patent to be to whatever the search was. So here's an example of an articulated a joint brace, and then a few nodes away, something similar, but not close enough to be a nearest neighbor. So this is sort of a couple of screenshots from the demo. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see sort of the ranked list of the documents similar to Google patents or other patent searches. And of course, you can navigate through that. But when you click on one of those, it brings up the node in the sort of node space. And from there, you can see the inventors, the publication dates, and any references and things like that. And what's kind of cool is as you sort of traverse through this node space, you sort of can recreate the CPC hierarchy by zooming out in the space and showing each of the broader categories for those patents that are expressed by the semantic similarity between them. And so finally, you get to the sort of highest level, which is the human necessities category, which was A on the previous slide. So the US patent analytics market in 2022 was close to $1 billion. The total market size is about 1.46 million individuals. And then the addressable market size in there is about 40,000 individuals comprised of close to 4,000 patent law firms plus individual patent lawyers. And we think accessing 20% of that would be a decent, we'd be happy with that. So to date, we're entirely bootstrapped. So we retain all the IP so far. Our market strategy is to release to the beta users actually by the end of the month. Then after that, we'd like to enter with students and academics. The reason for that is as students that are in law firms, or students that are in academia go to law firms, they'll bring things that they like with them and sort of hope for a natural adoption through that strategy. Of course, we'll be looking at the markets in Albany and St. Louis, which is where I'm originally from, where I have a lot of contacts, and then eventually try to get into larger research firms. So releasing this quarter and then public release in Q3. So like I said, I'm Daniel Van Hoosen. I'm a PhD physicist, and Jared and I, the founders of this company, really attempted to form this out of our disdain for the academic literature searching process, whereby even if you're an expert in a field, a domain expert, it can be quite challenging to traverse this. And so after a little bit of feedback and realizing there's a couple of hurdles with academic literature like paywalls and things like that, we decided to enter at the patent space and eventually hopefully reach back into the academic literature space. We also have an NLP expert on our team, Amanda, who's working for us. So we have a couple of use cases. Of course, patent lawyers and patent practitioners. But even on the opposite side, it could be useful during patent reviewing and research analysis. And finally, during exploratory search, whereby if you're a small business or an academic, you may investigate the space in which you could have a potential idea come to fruition. So the ask is, we're looking for IP professionals, R&D teams, and others to help us beta test our product, provide feedback. We're looking to introductions to patent professionals and perhaps interviews for those patent professionals. So it's great to see the table back in the corner here. And we're also raising seed funding for scaling, of course. So the QR code here is for our beta tester sign up. And with that, I'll conclude. So thank you.
As with many things, there's always a good side and potentially a less good side, right? So when you think about your tool in the context of having somebody that could use your tool to assert patents upon others, as opposed to working with early stage firms to look at a landscape and find white space and really craft compelling and valuable claims to that firm, how do you think about those use cases between the trolls and the entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so yeah, like you said, there's a couple of different use cases. One, of course, is for those who are just sort of doing an exploratory search prior to going to a patent firm to do their search. But the real value of the product comes in when the product gets in the hands of the IP professionals themselves and are able to do the patent search more efficiently and more thoroughly than they could otherwise. So one sort of adoption technique, go-to strategy, is to get it in the hands of the academics and the students, and then perhaps, or sort of most importantly, is to get the product in the hand of the professionals themselves.
I kind of have a historical question for you. So a lot of times we think of search as a solved problem. I think a lot of people who are involved in information retrieval know that's not necessarily true. So clearly here, you've gotten yourself to sort of the frontier of knowledge on search, and specifically in this niche, and then found some gaps and maybe a novel approach. Can you tell us a little bit of this, the founding story of the research that you did and the insights that you had that led to this?
Yeah, sure thing. So, like I said, I'm a physicist by training, and I was studying phase transitions, and so I was scouring the academic literature for things related to phase transitions and primarily looking at liquid to solid phase. Never mind, doesn't matter. Anyway, sorry. We started doing a lot of work with machine learning and network theory in the research itself. And although things like Google search and other patent things produce a node network under the hood, that sort of is not expressed or exposed to the users, and so it's sort of hidden. You can't see any connections between any of the results they're providing. And so we think it would be really great and visually appealing to sort of expose that to the user so they can really define for themselves what's most important. And so that's sort of the background behind what we're doing here.
Thanks for the great presentation. I come from a patent research background, so I'm really interested in your technology. I just have a question. It seems like the way the hierarchies are generated is based on CPC classing. It's possible to get rejections and find similar prior art in cases where it might not necessarily be the same class. So my question, I guess, is, are you able to identify connections between CPC subclasses that might be semantically similar but aren't necessarily derived from the same parent class?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. A couple of answers. Sometimes patents have multiple CPC categories listed, but in addition to that, we're running the semantic similarity pipeline on the entire corpus of the patents themselves. So even if it's not in the same CPC class, we'll be able to see if it's semantically similar.
Okay, thank you.
MC prerogative, I get to ask a question whenever I want. So is the USPTO a potential client? And if you think about selling this as a license model seats or something like that, does this have value to the USPTO or similar body like that?
Yeah, great question. I think it definitely could. So patent reviewers, for example, may be able to use the product. I think that's a definite location that we could possibly sell the product. And you're right, it's software as a service is the technique here.
Thank you for the presentation. I guess, what's the difference between your application and the open ones that's available out there? Because, for example, the graph analysis and the semantic similarity is quite common, and there's a lot of tools that are open source, so you don't even have to pay for it. And those are applied for different fields and easily applied to the same situation as this one, right? So what's the difference from those?
Yeah, there's a few things like Semantic Scholar has a similar node network, but they're not the only thing they're analyzing is like inventors and references. So we're sort of doing a deeper dive than that and tailoring it to the target audience. So you can do connections based on references and authors and things like that. Doing connections based off NLP is quite a bit more challenging than some of those things that exist. So you're right, it's been applied in a couple of different areas, and we're using it here for patents.